I also showed up every single day for the first 3 years of my alcohol-free journey. I shared something on Instagram and stories every single day. So I showed up for that community relentlessly for 3 whole years. Why do you drink? Is it for reward? Is it for stress relief? Is it to soothe anxiety? And getting really crystal clear, and not just on those things that look nice to everybody else. There will always be a crossover for everybody, but then there will always be something that's in and that's really unique to you. The Drink Responsibly campaign was invented by the alcohol industry, not to reduce drinking, but to shift responsibility onto the individual and away from the product.
Welcome to Blisstopia podcast. I'm your host, Mercedes Castellani, life purpose coach, business owner, and your spiritual guide on all things mindset, manifestation, and purpose. This podcast is a space for deep reflections, meaningful conversations to help you expand your mind, dive into the depths of your soul, and create a life that makes you feel alive. Whether you're walking, driving, or simply vibing, take a deep breath and get ready to dive. Hello, my love. Welcome to another episode of Blisstopia podcast. I'm your host, Mercedes Castellani, and I'm super happy to be having this conversation. Today, we're going to talk about ditching alcohol and finding your purpose with Jodi Clark. Jodi is a sobriety coach, business coach, and the founder of Sober Flourish, one of the UK's leading community for women navigating sobriety. She left a 20 years corporate career in digital marketing to build her business, and then she hit 100K in her first year, which is massive. She has been alcohol-free for 3.5 years. She has built a fantastic community of over 84,000 women on Instagram, and she has guided hundreds of women through the early days of sobriety. She also mentors alcohol-free women in service-based businesses, and she runs luxury wellness retreats. And for the record, to give you a little bit more context, Jodi and I, we met last year in a mastermind that we did together. And we met online for 6 months. We were like kind of besties online. And then we met in person in Australia, which was so fun and expansive. We were walking by the beach, having these deep conversations, drinking our matcha lattes, by the pool in a 5-star hotel, talking business. So I am so happy to bring Jodi to the show. You're going to learn so much from her. So welcome, Jodi, to the show. I'm super happy to have you.
Thank you for having me. What an intro, by the way.
Well, you deserve the intro, girl.
You would have thought this when we first met. Oh, it would be about 9 months ago now, maybe, that we would now be sat here now. This is amazing.
Yes,
I love it.
That's the beauty and the serendipity, when you join a group coaching program, a mastermind, you just meet like-minded women and you're like, oh my God, where were these women like 1 year before? And you start creating your tribe and you start meeting these very aligned connections. So I'm really happy that we met, and I'm really happy that you can come to the podcast. So I thought that your journey would be extremely inspiring for the Blisstopia community, because you had a corporate career, successful corporate career in digital marketing, and then you quit all of that to build something even more meaningful than that. So let's go back in time. What was your life like before, when you were, still drinking alcohol, and what is your life like now? What happened?
So from the outside, I don't think anybody probably would have noticed that anything was wrong. I think a lot of how I was feeling when I was drinking was internal. A lot of anxiety, a lot of feeling like I was letting myself down, kind of showing up to Monday mornings at work, feeling hungover, having not stopped at the 1 glass of wine on the Sunday that I promised myself that I was going to. And I was high functioning. I had climbed the corporate ladder ever since from being about 25 years old. I'd always had a job since being 15. And I'd always kind of had this idea that the norm was to climb the corporate ladder. That was just what we did. And I did really well at that. I would never say that I kind of looked, where it came to alcohol, it looked like it was chaotic. It was really the internal battle that I kind of got to, which made me realize I wanted change. But life, again, like I say, it looked completely normal. We had children, a marriage. We live in a little cottage in the countryside. We've got dogs. And I guess from the outside, from like the Instagram perspective, it's all those boxes are ticked and everything's fine. It's just I did actually develop quite an unhealthy relationship with alcohol for quite a long period of time. And I really got to a point where it was at its worst when COVID hit. So a lot of people, there's quite a mixed bag when people drink how I did. They either decided that they were going to stop drinking altogether during COVID, or it escalated. And we were kind of, especially in our friendship group, we'd be sharing WhatsApp. So it was all opening a gin at 1:00 in the afternoon, or as soon as it got to 4:00. Because if you remember, we had that gorgeous summer as well during COVID. And for me, that was kind of my undoing. I started to drink more regularly. I didn't have to get up to drive to work. I could just come and sit in front of my laptop. And it didn't really matter if I was hungover. Work was very stressful. We were migrating hundreds of florist platforms at the time. And we were managing that with teams in Chicago, in Hyderabad, in India. And I was leading all of that. It was very, very stressful. I had a 2-year-old at home, an 8-year-old, 10-year-old at home that we were supposed to be homeschooling, that we were home surviving more than anything. And yeah, my drinking just got worse and worse and worse. Now, I'm not saying I was getting up and drinking every day in terms of like in the daytime. It was just nighttime. I started to realize that actually I feel better in that moment when I had a glass of wine. The problem for me, I was a grey area drinker. I didn't know how to stop at that one glass of wine. I didn't drink for the taste of it. I drank to relieve the stress, to disconnect, for a bit of an end to the workday and the start to my evening, if that makes sense. So from the outside, everything looked fine. Internally, I wasn't in a great place. So that's kind of where I was at. Alongside all of this, Mercedes, I put on a hell of a lot of weight during this time. So I'm drinking more regularly. The beers whilst we're doing the gardening was more regular. And I was the type of person that would eat really poorly when I drank as well. So I would be binging crisps, and then I'd be fancying a takeaway, and then we'd eat the Sunday dinner. But in England, you know what it's like. We've got the roast, and it's roast potatoes and in fat and Yorkshire pudding. And it was just calorie, and not prioritizing myself. So I wasn't really doing the move I needed to do either. And then I went on an all-inclusive holiday with the family. And I just had a few moments on that holiday. We're not the type of family, and no discredit to anybody that does do this, although it was an all-inclusive holiday, we weren't the type of family that were on the beers all day, if that makes sense. It was still very much sat at night time with the evening entertainment. However, I quickly started to realise that my favourite part of the day, even though I was on holiday with my family, away from work, my favourite part of the day was when I got on that balcony, the kids were asleep, and I got a bottle of Prosecco, and I was sat on my own. And it's not that I've not done that before. It's not that I had not realised that, like, rushing the kids' bedtimes at home, rushing their bedtime stories so I could get down to my wine. That happened for many years. We're busy. We could be forgiven for that. A lot of people do that. But it was just something in the alignment of that holiday where I couldn't ignore it. I think because I hadn't got all the distractions going on, that I realised something needed to change. And because I've got a lot of weight to lose as well, I knew that the only thing that would stop me from piling on the pounds or help me losing weight is if I had a break from drinking. So on that flight, on the way home, I told Dale I was doing 100-day, Dale's my husband, as you know, doing 100 days alcohol free. And then that was the beginning. 30 days into that 100 days, I'd managed to listen to the right things at the right time and brainwash myself into knowing that I was done and that I wasn't going to go back.
Wow.
So that was where I got up to in terms of that decision and stopping drinking. And then since then, nothing is the same as it once was. I can't say that with enough emphasis that my life bears zero resemblance to what it was, how I show up, how present I am with the kids, my relationship with Dale, my career transition and how I show up. I found my purpose. I've lost 6.5 stone, which I think is 91 pounds. I have ambition. It's way bigger than me. There is nothing that's the same. It has been, aside from my boys, the single best decision I've ever made.
And it's incredible. Congratulations on this, because it's also incredible that you went from that space to saying, you know what, we're quitting, and you actually did it. Because I can imagine that when people are facing any kind of bad habit or addiction, like drinking or smoking or sugar or whatever it might be, we can have those phases when we decide from a conscious standpoint, but then it's kind of like this subconscious kick in on, and then you're back, and then you try again, and then you're back, and then kind of like in a cycle. And you were able to say, you know what, we're quitting. And you went
Mm.
and you did your 30 days, your 100 days, and now it's been already 3 years and a half, and your life has completely changed.
Yeah, completely. Completely.
So, what do you think made you in that moment say, like, really do the click and be like, never again, this is changing? Because I think that's the hardest bit. Many people, as I said, they will try and come back, try and come back, blah, 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 and you were able to say, no, we're quitting and we're quitting. What do you think helped you really anchor that decision and follow through until now and for many decades to come?
This is something that I talk about a lot with the ladies that I work with. I think having something bigger than me or a bigger driver than just sobriety running alongside me not drinking really helped me. So having a lot of weight that I wanted to lose really, really helped. Having something that if you do drink, it's going to stop you from achieving that goal. So whether that's whether that's improving a relationship. For example, some women get to a point where their husbands will say to them, and vice versa, if you carry on drinking how you are doing, we're not going anywhere. This is going to, so having something that's bigger than you, that truly matters to you. And for me, it happened to be weight loss at the time because it was really impacting me. I didn't recognize myself anymore. I had got to the point where I wasn't even able to kind of look at myself in the eyes when I was doing my mascara. I would kind of like look because my relationship with myself was so poor.
Mm,
And that was because of poor self-image and just constantly letting myself down.
mm,
You're not going to drink this week. You're only going to drink on a Friday night. You're not going to turn up to weekly trade meeting on a Monday morning, riddled with anxiety and a raging frigging hangover. But I'd do the same thing every week. So my self-trust and my relationship with myself was so poor that I knew that if I could lose this weight and start to show up for myself, that was going to really change everything. And the easiest way for me to do that, I say easy in the loosest term, because it is not frigging easy at all, me to not drink alongside it. So I think that for any form of behavioral change, it's a whole identity piece. It's something that I couldn't label at the start because going back 3.5 years, identity, embodiment, mindset, all that stuff was completely new to me, completely new to me. So I didn't have a word for it. But what I actually realized now looking back is I did the work that I now teach other people to do inside of my communities. And it's about visualizing that version of yourself that you want to be. What does she look like? How does she show up? And then embodying her and taking those steps to become her every single day. So there's a whole lot that went into that, but also a lot of basic needs nurturing. My ladies in my community get really sick of me talking about this because it just gets overlooked. Everybody knows they need to sleep well. They know they need to nourish their body. They need to get out into nature and they need to, but no, not a lot of people are still doing it. It goes onto the back burner, especially as mums. We're busy. We are busy. And the easiest thing to fall off is usually our own self-care and working on ourselves. So I think that for me, it was having that big weight loss goal and knowing that I wanted to be my own best friend. And the fact I couldn't look at myself in the mirror, I couldn't ignore that for any longer.
Thank you so much for sharing this. And when I went and I joined one of the calls with your community to talk about life purpose, I said it, and I truly believe this. It's extremely courageous, and I truly admire you and the women in your community who have been able to do this, because we can think about it from a conscious standpoint, but then really following through and making the change at the level of your identity. When you say, this is who I am. I am a healthy woman. I am a happy woman, I am a regulated woman, whatever you might want to define. But then you need to make the change at the level of the identity so that it now becomes not what you do, but who you are. And who you are will dictate how you're going to think, how you're going to feel, what you're going to do, and therefore the results that you're going to get. So the transformation needs to run very deep so that it's actually long lasting, and we can keep this for 3.5 years and until the rest of your life, because now this is who you are and it's going to continue. It's not going anywhere. It's not a fashion, something that you tried for a summer, whatever, just to have like a nice body, lose some weight. Now this is who you are, and it's going to be there for the rest of your life. But in order to really put it in the subconscious mind, it requires a lot of work. And I think it's truly, truly admirable.
Thank you. And I think this is where a lot of women go wrong, sadly, is that they white knuckle through and they think that sobriety is literally just not drinking. The just drinking is actually the easiest part. And it is just scratching the surface. If you want it to become something sustainable, that is a lifestyle change, there is a whole heap of work that needs to be tapped into, a whole heap. And just sadly, not a lot of women are either ready or willing to do that work. And then they kind of end up going back to it.
Yeah. And I think this applies to any bad habit or addiction. If you're defining yourself as, for example, as a smoker, if you attach yourself to I'm a smoker, it's going to be impossible to let go of it. But you need to change your identity to say, I'm a healthy person. And what does a healthy person do? But she doesn't smoke because it just doesn't match. So it really needs to be at the level of the identity. And it's...
So even maybe going back a little bit further than the identity, it's kind of how do I get to that point where I know that I need to work on my identity? It's at that level of, it's the awareness initially. And it's, again, this is a lot of the work on one-on-one basis that I will do, is kind of really deep delving into a person's unique relationship with alcohol. Because you've got to realize that your identity's not right for you to want to fix it, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So kind of having that awareness and that willingness to go deep into your relationship and realize it's not just I'm sick of the hangovers, I'm feeling a bit shit, I'm not showing up at work how I want to. It's actually, right, okay, that's fine. On the surface, that all sounds great and it's what everybody wants to hear and they can all relate to. But what's the dirty bit? What's the secret bit that's keeping you awake? Those thoughts that you're waking up when you're riddled with anxiety at 4 o'clock in the morning, that's where we need to look, because there's underlying reasons why we're doing this. It's a self-soothing behavior. If you really want, and this is how I can tell, I call it the click. I can tell when my ladies have got the click, is because they're willing to take the plaster off and look at what's underneath it. They're willing to start with that awareness first. And that's generally where I find that women really succeed with the sobriety.
Absolutely. And we're talking about alcohol here, but again, this applies to everything: smoking, sugar, shopping, gambling, whatever it might be. There's an emotion there that we're trying to avoid. So we put something to cover that up, whether that's, again, alcohol, food, whatever it might be, smoking. But then we need to take the plaster out and really look at what is going on and really heal what is actually going on. What is the emotion that you're actually trying to avoid? And we need to stop avoiding that emotion. Go there. It's going to hurt. It's not going to be pretty. It's going to itch when we put some, some medicine there, some alcohol in there. But then it's going to actually heal. And then you're going to actually move on in life. But first, you need to look into what's actually happening in there.
You have to be ready.
Fantastic. So can you share, I know when we discussed, and I love that we're having this conversation because you know my story, the listeners know my story. I was a marketing director in the wine industry. So it's funny how things change. I love that we're having this conversation, but can you share some of the crazy facts about alcohol that people don't know? I know you shared some crazy facts with us when we were on the mastermind.
Yeah, I think, oh gosh, there's so many. There are so many things that I could share here. I did a post on Instagram the other day that actually went viral around the facts, around the secrets, the things that they don't want us to know. And yeah, like I say, that did do very well. There is a big appetite for people to want to learn more, because sadly, I don't think we do have the full picture. And I do sadly think there is something a little bit more sinister going on, but we'll leave that for another time. But I think that I'm just trying to think really what the women in my community found surprising. And I think it's the facts around how long it takes to get out of your system, that it can take up to 5 to 6. So where you sort of say, oh, well, I don't know why I feel so shit. I only had a glass of wine or I had a bottle of wine over the weekend. And now it's Thursday and I still don't feel, I don't understand that. And it's because it's still in our systems. It takes a hell of a long time. We think that we have that drink and then we use the guidelines of, oh, well, if I have a good night's sleep, then I can get up and then we take that as golden, that everything should be absolutely fine 24 hours later, 48 hours later. When that is not the truth. It is, I think it's the only substance that crosses the blood-brain barrier. It gets into every single part of our body. and it can take up to a week to actually leave our systems. But there's all sorts. If I start on this, I won't stop.
We're going to spend 1 hour talking about all of the things that
1
alcohol
hour
will do to your body.
how things I am with the alcohol industry.
Yeah. And for me, what was really, so now obviously I'm pregnant, so I'm 100% alcohol free. But when on the lead up to getting pregnant, I had to drastically reduce. My partner and I, we drastically reduced, and I think we were drinking like maybe 1 glass or 2 per week. So it was very moderate, but still I use the Aura Ring, and it basically gives you the quality of your sleep, all the data around your sleep. And it was crazy. Even 1 glass of wine, you would tend to think, okay, this is like not harming anybody. It's going to be fine. 1 glass of wine would already have an impact on my sleep score. And then the next day I would feeling like shit, pardon my French. Yeah. I would feel like shit after only 1 glass of wine. And I'm like, wow, like I think we give alcohol way too much grace, but it is actually harming our bodies, harming our sleep, harming everything.
I think one of the things I probably shared with you while we were at the retreat was when I heard Stephen Bartlett talking on his podcast. He got I forget her name now, and I won't do it justice anyway, but health specialist who was responsible for the Whoop data.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that they were chatting away about it, and he said that he's a massive data geek. So he's massive health optimization, massively into health optimization, sleep training, that type of thing. When he tracked his data overnight, very similar to what you're saying here, the only other time that he had seen that level of data was when he had COVID, and that was just from red wine. So the data that was shown during him being super poorly with COVID was exactly the same after a night having a couple of glasses of red wine, out having dinner. And for him, that was enough, because again, he was massively into his optimization of his health. Why would I continue to drink like that? Maybe I could show a couple of the facts actually that I shared on my Instagram. Okay. So the Drink Responsibly campaign was invented by the alcohol industry, not to reduce drinking, but to shift responsibility onto the individual and away from the product. 6 million deaths globally were attributed to alcohol in 2019. I would class as a public health crisis, but people don't talk about it. The things that are all readily available online for us to see, but we just put our blinkers on. And this one that might be relevant to the industry that you obviously work in before. So alcohol companies have funded research designed to make the product look safer. In 2018, the NIH shut down a major alcohol study after discovering that industry executives have been involved in designing it. Wow. There are heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps. And I think that the red wine is good for your heart narrative. Absolute nonsense. There's so many.
And we've heard that from doctors. We've heard that from doctors saying,
yeah.
So it's very, very misleading. So we all know that our alcohol will harm your body, and it will harm also your emotions. It's not allowing you to be in contact fully with yourself. And then we tint the whole thing with lightheartedness. It's like, okay, I'm just relaxing, but actually you're harming yourself. It's poison, and we shouldn't be drinking.
Yeah.
So
I think out of all of them, out of everything that I've listened to, read, watched, digested, it was knowledge in knowing that women were targeted based on a drop in sales, that women weren't drinking enough, and that we were heavily marketed to. The pinking of the market, they call it, don't they? Where the bottles all of a sudden started to have flowers on them. Everything started to be scented. The bottles were pink and floral. Everything was targeted towards women to increase their drinking behaviors, which just scares the hell out of me, because then it's left to you to be responsible. But anyway, like I say, we could bang on about that forever.
Absolutely. And I heard you talk a lot about gray area drinking. So what is that exactly? What does it mean?
It's a big scale. It is a big scale. So if you imagine somebody that is in active addiction, so somebody that is heavily dependent on alcohol, and then you've got somebody that is what I class as a unicorn, which is like you've explained to me before, where you can moderate and you can take it or leave it, and you can have a glass and you can have it with your dinner, etc. And then that is it. There is a huge pot in the middle that are classed as middle lane / grey area drinkers. And they are the type of people, like I was, where the thought of a cup of tea after a night out just sounds absolutely ludicrous. Like, why the hell would you bother? If I'm having a glass of wine, the bottle's going to be open. And when I get home from that party, I'm going to make sure I've got some booze to have a drink when I get home as well. It's that grey area. It's that kind of not doing what you said you were going to do where alcohol's in the picture. Promising yourself you're not going to be hungover when you go to work on Monday, but you can guarantee that every single Monday you wake up, you've got a raging hangover. It's that not being able to stop after one. It's not falling all over the place. It's not rocking up to the playground with your kids stinking of wine. That's not what I would class as grey area. Although, like I say, it's a sliding scale and people sit at different varying stages, which is why the work that I do truly matters to me, and making sure that people are in the right hands when they're trying to work through this, because the scale varies. Everybody's circumstances is very different. But grey area, for me, the easiest way is if you can't imagine going back and having a cup of tea after a night out, you might be in that middle lane.
Absolutely. And also, I think it's that piece around self-trust. You promise yourself, this happened to me many times. You wake up on a Sunday morning and you're like, I will never feel like this again. What do you do the next weekend? You put yourself exactly in the same position and you're like, but I promised myself I wouldn't do this again. And you break your promises, and therefore your self-trust, it just goes through whatever.
Yeah. Suddenly you have to kind of wait until the pain of being where you are outweighs the pain of actually changing. And that's where a lot of people get to, unless it gets to that. I mean, I work with a lot of women that will say, like, I want to change my relationship. I'm getting quite scared. I don't know how bad I'm willing for it to get. Some women will say, I'm almost willing on a warning from the doctor, because that'll be my driver to actually change my relationship. Because Mercedes, we get to a point, again, especially as busy working moms with houses to run, goals and objectives, where we think it's the only thing we've got for ourselves. And it does become that's what we wrap it up with me time. I mean, me sitting with a glass of wine or a bottle of wine at the end of a night with my crisps and Netflix at the end, that was my me time. I didn't class a spa day or going for a walk in nature or walking the dogs or going out for a meal. I didn't class anything like that as me time. An early night, it was me sat with my wine.
That was your way to regulate your nervous system. So after a hard day, and running a household and a job, it was the way to regulate your nervous system.
When in actual fact, it was the dysregulating thing I could possibly be doing.
I
just had no idea. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what advice would you give to a woman who's wanting to change a habit, whether that's drinking or smoking or reducing sugar or whatever it might be, and it's proving to be a little bit hard? Maybe she tried a couple of times and she's, back into square one. What advice would you give to her?
Get to the root cause of why you're doing it. Get curious, be open, be vulnerable, and get really crystal clear on what are your drivers. An exercise that I run with women is to sit down and work out what your perceived benefits of it are. And again, this can be transferred to any behavior. Like we said before, the process is the same. Apart from this one's a highly addictive substance, so it makes it a lot harder. But the perceived benefits, and writing a list of what is the perception? What do you think it's giving you? Why do you drink? Is it for reward? Is it for stress relief? Is it to soothe anxiety? And getting really crystal clear, and not just on those things that look nice to everybody else. There will always be a crossover for everybody, but then there will always be something that's in and that's really unique to you. So it's about getting really close to the root cause as to why you're doing it in the first place, because that's where everything's got to start. And then looking for healthier alternatives that you can utilize in those moments. And not just, okay, well, I drink to unwind. Okay, so what can you do in that moment that will help you unwind, that you find relaxing? Okay, well, I enjoy a spa day. Okay, well, that's great, but what have you got that you can do in the moment? Something that you can do in that. So for example, it's very easy for you to go and get a bottle of wine and sit and unwind, and you're kind of itching that scratch. You're getting that dopamine hit. You're getting what you think that you need from alcohol. But you can't just go off and book a spa day at 6 o'clock on a Thursday. But what you could do, if you enjoy it, is do an online meditation class or an online yoga class, or it might be a bath with candles with the door locked and tell your partner, look, I need an hour to myself. What sorts of things have you got available to you that you can do that will alleviate the same pressure or the same thing that you're drinking first place. So getting to the root cause as to why you drink, that is where I would say for you to start. 100%. You have to be aware and curious.
Yeah. So it sounds like there's scratch that it's itching, and it's kind of like we're doing something because we think that's going to soothe us, which is this bad habit. But then actually we can do so many other things that will actually take the itch out of it.
Completely. And this is the one of the, in my one-on-one, it's the first tool that I will run through. The first modality that I go through with every single one of my one-on-one clients is that perception list. And then what we'll look at is the negative implications. So all the crap that happens when you drink, and let's get real, let's get blunt, let's get honest. I want to know about you staying at the pub too long and your kids missing dinner and giving your kids 3 packets of crisps for their tea because you and your partner are having a few beers. I want to hear the dirt. I want to hear your unique relationship and all the things it impacts, whether that's work, how you're showing up, whether it's your skin, whether it's LIBS, whether it's anxiety. I want to know all of that. Then I want to look at the benefits that you find where you've got evidence of periods of time where you've not drank before. And let's look at the picture that paints. And then we go into the reassociation. So what can we do over here to help you achieve these things that you're drinking for? And what we find is when we've done a couple of the sessions, we actually go back to that perceived benefits list and I'll ask the question again, what goes on your perceived benefits list? And there's nothing left because the awareness is there now. The subconscious has been rewired to start to see that actually we'll see it for what it is.
Absolutely. So what you thought were benefits are actually not benefits anymore.
Never are. The only thing, and this has been me being honest again from working with women for so long now, the only thing is that is when women say that they like the buzz. Because that you argue with that. Nothing's going to give you the same thing. Nothing, and I did a post the other day about this, is that there's nothing in real life that will give you the dopamine hit that will. Other than other drugs. So that's something we just have to get used to. We just have to get used to the fact that no, you're not going to. Yeah, there are things that can get close to it. Cold water plunges, laughter, dancing around the kitchen, finding those natural dopamine suppliers. But yeah, that's the only thing really that ever lingers on that list. So when somebody says it, I'm like, okay, isn't it? Because the goodness just outweighs that. The benefits of being alcohol-free outweighs that over time.
Absolutely. So let's get back into your story because we have a lot to learn from you. So what happened once you quit alcohol, you stopped numbing your feelings and kind of like the truth emerged? What happened in your life?
So when I stopped drinking, I shared my every single move on Instagram. I created a sobriety account and I did that to hold myself accountable. And whilst I was doing that, I was super vulnerable, didn't hold back. And I noticed that a lot of women were reaching out, that were liking it, that were sending me direct messages, very much like, oh my God, I thought that was just me. And I would share those real specific anecdotal moments, causing an argument with Dale so that he would go to bed and I could be left on my own for my me time, recording arguments on my notes app after a few glasses of wine because I thought I was in the right and I knew I wasn't going to remember the argument the next day. So those types of real anecdotal, having indigestion tablets and ibuprofen on the food shop religiously every single week, those tiny things were what people were reaching out and sort of saying, oh my God, me too. So people, like I say, women were reaching out and saying that they could relate, but they were then starting to confide in me because there weren't a lot of people that were sharing their story. So there would be regular women would be reaching out. And over time, as I've said to you, this gray area is a very sliding scale. There may be a woman that would reach out where she had a very vulnerable situation at home and she would share her drinking patterns. And I quickly realized that as much as I felt very flattered, very vulnerable, very honored that people were trusting me to have these conversations, morally, I wasn't trained. Morally, I wasn't. They weren't asking to be coached, but the type of person that we are, we want to support, we want to guide, and we want to help as much as we can through learned and lived experience. But I wanted to make sure that I was qualified. So as part of that kind of realization, I embarked on a coaching qualification with absolutely no intention whatsoever to be a coach. It was just purely so that I had that peace of mind that I knew if a woman came to me and potentially, I've never had to do it, but that she needed to be referred, I knew where to refer to get the help that she needed, etc. And I just fell in love with coaching. I fell in love with the process. It was just absolutely just so enriching. It was incredible. For the diploma in positive psychology with a specialism in alcohol-free and behavioral change. And I was doing this alongside my corporate role. And I just knew that I had found my purpose, my passion, helping others. The version of me that it brought out was unlike anything that I'd ever experienced before. And I was in a corporate environment that were trying to force their purpose and their mission on me when I'd actually found my own over here. So that kind of made that quite tricky. But yeah, and it catapulted me into discovering my purpose. And that was the path to me becoming a coach. I'd also always had this sort of feeling that it was 100 days that made me become alcohol free. And I want to be able to package that up and include everything that I needed and that I did and that I absorbed during my 100 days to make that decision so easy for me in terms of mentally, that's such that I'm not going to go back. So I created the 100 Days to Flourish program. Again, this was all alongside my corporate role. I was coaching them at lunchtimes. You know what it's like in the early stages. I was coaching at lunchtimes. I was getting home and kids, this, that, and the other, sort of saying to Dale, I've got a group call this evening, and just doing that all alongside this purpose that just felt like it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think that, to say sadly, I think naturally when you become alcohol free, you start to notice the bullshit. Excuse my French. And I'm finding the corporate side of things a little bit too much for me to continually keep my mouth shut. So it was becoming quite exhausting. And I had a high pressure job. I had a big team and managing a big budget. And once upon a time, it was my dream. But I fell out of love. I fell out of love with it and fell deeply head over heels in love with my passion and my purpose. And then in October 2024, I handed my notice in. I'd managed to match my corporate salary with my side hustle, which still feels crazy to say out loud.
Yeah.
And then in the January, I left and went full time into Sober Flourish.
My God, I love this. And I can totally relate to your story, because I think it was that, being in corporate, having a successful career, but then, and that was our dream at some point. We wanted that. It's not like, it was aligned at some point. And I don't know how it was for you, but I had a lot of fun. I was really motivated for years, for 12 years when I was in marketing. And I really wanted that.
I'm guessing you were really good at it, right?
Yes, I was really good. But then something starts like, I want something else. I want something different. It's like you fall out of love and there's this new lover that appears that it's a lot more interesting. And you want to go all in with this new lover that you have. And then you turn that into something real and beautiful and honest, and you start helping people, and you're like, and I really resonate with what you're saying about, sometimes when you're in corporate, you need to shut your mouth, you see things that are not making no sense. You see things that are going against your values. In my case, we were working, in the wine industry, and we were working with nature, and the way the company was handling, there was like zero sustainability, zero care for nature. And I was like, we are the ones that are going to be the first people that are going to be impacted, because the moment you have 1 degree more on Earth, the plants are going to change, the way you're going to do the crop is going to change, everything's going to change. So we need to be taking care of sustainability. So I could see so many things that were not aligned with my values. Like I didn't have the impact that I wanted to have. But then you need to shut up, or maybe you can talk about it, but it needs to be very elegant, very professional, very discreet. But in the end, you're just not being honest yourself, and you're not calling bullshit on things that should be called out so that they can actually change.
Yeah. It's misalignment, isn't it? At the end of the day, you just become misaligned. And I think that for me, it took for me to stop drinking to realize that I was very much on a path that I set myself off on, because it felt like that's what everybody else did. It's what I felt like I should be doing. I was really good at it. I enjoyed it. I got a lot from it. And then when I stopped drinking, all of a sudden I started to kind of see the cracks, see it for what it was. And there was only so many more times I would be able to go full throttle into a project, miss time with my kids, building this project, only for someone to take the budget away from the end. I couldn't destroy my soul anymore. You just see the cracks, and you stop ignoring the nonsense. That was my experience.
Mm.
That's kind of, it was just pure misalignment. I realized I was very, very, very misaligned where I was.
Mm.
And again, I'll behave because there's a lot more I could say.
Absolutely, absolutely. How did you manage to realize and articulate what your purpose was? Because this, even the concept of purpose, sometimes it feels a little bit in the air. It's kind of hard to, it's not so tangible. So, how did you manage to articulate what your new purpose was?
So I think the way I'm kind of talking about it is that I help women remove alcohol and build a life that they're obsessed with, because that very much encompasses what I've done myself.
Mm.
I want to help other women do it. It's through actually doing it. And I have helped, and it still sounds I'm not the kind of person to blow my own trumpet, but I have helped hundreds of people just through my programs alone, let alone the women that are in my Instagram following that reach out and say, hey, thank you, this has helped, etc. And it's in seeing that. It's seeing a woman where I was, or similar start point to where I was, remove alcohol and become an entirely different version of themselves. And it's not necessarily a new version, it's the one that they were supposed to be all along. They're rediscovering their passions and what they used to enjoy doing as a kid. You can see the spark come back. I was doing some research calls with my community yesterday for a program, like a service that I'm releasing. And one of the women, Angela, she won't mind me mentioning her name. I haven't seen her for a couple of months because she's not been able to come on the group calls and whatever. But the difference in her skin, how she was showing up, her confidence, how she was holding herself, that for me lights a fire in my belly way more than reaching any KPI in a boardroom.
So beautiful, so beautiful. I love this. And you can see it in real women, with the name, with the body, with the beautiful face. And I just love when you show this before and after. And I've actually shared this with my partner. Look at this. Like, for example, these women, she quit for 100 days, for example. Look at her skin, look at her eyes, the energy that is back in the eyes. And it's just so beautiful that you're able to help women in this transition. So this kind of like you started sharing your journey. It kind of like happened, we could say, by accident. You started sharing your journey, then you trained yourself as a coach. And when you said, okay, I think this is what I want to do, this is my thing, how did you transition from corporate to being a business owner? Did you have a plan? How did you do this?
Yeah. So I stopped drinking in the August 2022. And then I studied for my diploma the following year. And so it was about a year into my sobriety. I thought, I've been doing this a long time now, etc. And I embarked on that qualification. Started the 100 Days to Flourish. I registered it as a business at a similar time to when I was doing my coaching qualification, because I knew now that I wanted to make something of this. So I wanted to do it properly. I have 25 years in the corporate world of experience of senior digital marketing, right back from when Facebook was, I feel very old when I say that, but literally I went into the online space at the same time that Facebook was birthed. And so I've got a lot of experience around working with small businesses. In my previous role was helping small business owners with their online presence and how to excel online, around their reviews and their brand consistency and their tone of voice and their social media. So fortunately, Mercedes, this is my bread and butter. I absolutely adore it. So felt like it was very easy for me to set these things up. I knew how to create a business. I knew about domains. My corporate role was very much about user experience and conversion rate optimization, websites, platforms, speed, search engine optimization, paid advertising, email marketing, the lot. I managed teams on all of this. So really, it was the perfect storm for me. I created my own business very, very quickly. Knew how it needed to look and feel and how to build trust with my audience, how to engage, how to nurture, and what truly mattered. So that certainly helped. And I also showed up every single day for the first 3 years of my alcohol-free journey. I shared something on Instagram and stories every single day. So I showed up for that community relentlessly for 3 whole years.
Yeah.
So to build that, it sounds easy. It isn't easy just because I was used to it. But that felt like it kind of happened quite effortlessly for me. There's a lot of plates to spin, but I'm that type of person anyway. We just get shit done right. And then, so I did the 100 Days to Flourish. I did a lot of one-to-one coaching. As you know, when you first build it, it's kind of a lot. I know you love your one-to-one coaching, don't you? A lot of mine is more group. It's more group focused. And then when I got to January, I feel like I'm jumping about a little here, so forgive me. When I actually left the corporate role, I thought, you know what? I can't cut ties with talking about business. Again, it was I took away from corporate. I wanted to continue with the things I loved about corporate, but in my own business. So over here, I was helping women become alcohol free, but then I also started to work with women that were already alcohol free to bring their businesses to life, or to help women that had got existing businesses to grow and scale by putting my experience to use. So that's why I now do business coaching as well.
Love it. I love it. And to me, what is really admirable is that within the first year of, you quit your corporate job, and within the first year of quitting your job, in 8 months, you reach 100 pounds. So it's more than dollars, more than euros. So what advice would you give to a woman who's in a corporate job and she knows she wants to launch her own thing, her own business? How can she make sure that her business has solid foundations from the get-go?
I think depending on your own personal experience and your starting point, I mean, let's say, for example, there isn't a lot of understanding there, that this person just wants to start their own, but they don't know where to start. I highly recommend getting in the right room. And that to me means working with people that have already achieved what you're wanting to achieve. And because a lot of the guesswork wastes a lot of money. It wastes a lot of time. It can burn us out. And I think that there is so much value in being either one-on-one with a mentor, or being in a group with other women that are trying to achieve the same things as you. Going even a little bit deeper is that maybe that next sort of stage is that creating a business with the future version of yourself in mind again. Not just you now scrambling around trying to create a business from scratch and taking information from ChatGPT or Claude. Claude's my favorite. Not trying to scrap together what other people are doing or what looks good, because nobody's business is the same as yours. No one's start point is exactly the same as yours. It's about building with that future self in mind. So setting up systems that are going to help you to be as automated as possible, especially at the start where, well, it matters in both sides, because when you're busy and you're flourishing and you're thriving, you don't want to be manually booking people into your diary. You want a lot of this to be automated. But right at the start, when you've probably got a full-time gig and you're full-time working over here, you want to make things as seamless and easy as you possibly can. So using systems that help, paying the subscription that allows you more functionality to make things a bit easier. Taking the risk, having the self-trust, trusting your intuition. One of the biggest lessons that I've learned over the last couple of years is around that my intuition wins. My intuition is king. And that's how it has to be. And that's something that you can learn the hard way. You can, as much as I'm saying, getting in the right rooms and working with the right mentors, always making sure that you've got your guiding star, your North Star, which is your intuition as well. But learning from other people who are a little bit further ahead than you, and don't try and get a business together through ChatGPT.
Absolutely. And I love this. So learning from someone who has already done the thing that you want to do, finding a mentor, it's going to save you a lot of time, because you're going to be thinking, shall I do this? Shall I do A, B, C, D? There's a bunch of choices. And if you have a mentor, this person can tell you, you know what? B, go for it. But then there's also this piece, which is what feels true to me and how do I want to create my business? Because what also happens in those early stages of business is that you're trying a bunch of things, you're throwing spaghetti at the wall, you're copying this one person and then this other person, and this other person, and then this other person, and you're actually diluting yourself and you're actually diluting your ideas. So yes, you want to have a mentor that will save you time and money, but also you need to be trusting your own intuition so that your business is fully yours, fully aligned with you, sending the message that you want to send out into the world, functioning in a way that is aligned with you and your own energy. So I think it's important to have like that, the right balance between learning from someone who's further along the journey, but also listening to your own truth and finding something in the middle between those two.
Yeah, completely. And again, it's something that came to me a little bit later on, because I've always been that masculine energy. Do, get shit done, high achieving, always. And then the feminine smacked me in the face. And when I allowed for that space for her to come in, and I was taught a lot of lessons last year, that is where you truly start to thrive. The mindset, the slow with the fast, the blend of the two, and realizing that it doesn't make you lazy, it doesn't make you soft, it doesn't make you weak. If you can go into your fun, making white space in your diary, etc., it is needed. It is an absolute necessity for a functioning, thriving, flourishing business to have a blend of the two. Otherwise, you're going to burn out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then on another topic, I deeply believe that the things that we've learned in our corporate jobs will be extremely useful in a more aligned job or a more aligned business. Because I also see some women that when they're trying to transition, they're like, oh my God, but I've been doing this for 12 years, 20 years. This was a waste of time. There's this sort of grief, and we feel like we've wasted our time. But I honestly believe that the things that we've learned in that corporate job that for some time we've enjoyed and then at some point it became unaligned, all the things that we've learned there will be useful for something much more aligned. So would you agree with that? What do you think?
100%. I wouldn't have the probably, I'd say maybe not the biggest, but a huge chunk of my business has been created through the knowledge and the skill sets that I've learned in my corporate life. The highest revenue generating part of my business is built through the experience that I've had through helping small businesses thrive online. There is, you cannot put the value on learning how to manage budgets, and again, it depends on the industry that you're in, I suppose. If you're completely pivoted, you'll always have things that you can take from over here and utilize them. And I think if you're hitting that grief point of, oh my God, all of these years, that kind of sunk cost fallacy, isn't it? We stay where we are because of how much time, energy we've invested into it already. But what do you miss? And can you bring elements of that into the new business? That's exactly what I did. I was doing my alcohol-free coaching and my 100 Days to Flourish programs. I got my retreats running, but I actually realized that there's a big part of me that I thought I wanted to shed, but actually I do like to put my nice outfits on. I do like to have that sort of business attire. I do miss those business conversations. I do miss those really thought leader, energy driving conversations with badass business women. And I thought at first that was a chapter I needed to close, but actually it's doing me more than harm than good. So I actually created a whole new business arm around that. So yeah, absolutely. There's always elements of corporate that have, one, got us to where we are today, but two, we can utilize in our new business 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. In my case, it was the same. I was a marketing director, so I knew how to create a brand, how to have a certain positioning, how to create desire, how to have this luxury look and feel in everything that you do. And then those are the things that now I'm applying to sell something that is actually changing lives, being of service. Before I was harming people, harming the health of people. And now I'm actually helping them be happier and being aligned with their purpose. So it is extremely useful. Of course, as you say, it's going to depend on how much of a switch you're doing. In your case, you were very lucky that you worked in digital marketing and you have now an online business. So the crossover is bigger. But I think in any case, there will be some crossover and you can transfer skills from your corporate job, whatever it is that you're doing. You know how to run projects, or you know how to meet a deadline, or you know how to deal with client relationships. So all of those skills, you can transfer them into something that it's going to have bigger impact and that it's going to make you happier at the end of the day. So to close, what would you say to a woman who's stuck in a job she hates, but she's in that stage where she's like, oh, but I cannot change because A, B, C, D, insert excuse. And lately, ultimately she's too afraid to change at this point. What would you say to that woman?
If she really wants it, she probably sounds like a bit of an obvious answer. You need to speak to somebody that can help you make sense of where your head's at. If you were going to figure it out by yourself, you would have done by now. And I think there's so much gold in booking a session with somebody, booking a strategy session with somebody, booking a coaching session with a life coach or a purpose coach or a business coach, or whatever it might be. Just a one-off session because there's so much gold in the way that a coach can ask you those questions and mirror your language back to you. There's nothing more magical in a setting like that. You can come away with so much clarity through just 60 minutes listening to working with a professional, just mapping out what those next stages look like. That is what I would recommend. I did the same when I was working in corporate. I actually started working with a coach around confidence and how to articulate myself better and overcoming that kind of fear every time I started to try and use my voice. And it was in those sessions working with her and her careful questioning that made me realize that I could do this, that there is something bigger in those coaching sessions. So my advice would be to book a session with somebody. There are so many women out there, so many men out there that can help for this exact situation that you're in now. So I would reach out and spend a bit of money of trying to work out what those next steps are, because it's not a cost, it's a complete and utter investment.
Yes, absolutely. And it's one session, so there's no commitment. It's going to help you put words into what you're feeling, and then you can take it from there and move forward. But at least you're going to be unstuck and you can move forward.
And you might agree or you might not agree, Mercedes, but I think we generally tend to book sessions in kind of or offer sessions in blocks, usually because of the transformation we're going through. When it's something like that, where you need to hold the space for somebody to figure out those next steps, the speed that you can get that outcome is literally a session, isn't it? In one session to help somebody at least know what the next steps are.
Exactly. And start moving. Fantastic.
Great.
Thank you so much, Jodi, for all of this wisdom. It's been true joy to talk to you and to bring it to the podcast. So where can listeners find you online in case they want to ask you some questions, be inspired by the alcohol-free journey or learn from you on other topics? Where can they find you?
So on Instagram, which is at Sober Flourish, or on my website, which is soberflourish.com.
Fantastic. So we're going to put all the link in the show notes so you can reach out to Jodi. And I always like to finish the episodes with 3 rapid fire questions. So the first thing that comes to your heart will be the right one. Shall we do it? So when was the last time you felt bliss?
The last time I felt bliss. Okay, I was walking with Hudson, my spaniel, the other day down the country lanes, and it was the first bit of spring sunshine. And I stood there and he was off chasing rabbits or doing what he usually does in the field. And I just stood there with the sun shining on my face. That was the last moment.
Beautiful, beautiful. Can you think of one idea that fundamentally changed your life?
Quitting drinking.
Absolutely. And if you could choose one rule that everybody in the world needs to obey, what would it be?
Trust your intuition.
It's never wrong. Absolutely. Your intuition always knows. First, your body always knows.
Always.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jodi, for coming into the show. It's always a true pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. And I will see my listeners in the next episode. And in the meantime, in Blisstopia we trust. If you loved this episode, spread the word, share the episode with a friend who would love to hear this, subscribe to the show, and leave a 5-star rating on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or YouTube. This real quick action on your side helps the podcast grow, reach more women around the world, and it would literally make my day. I will see you next Friday for the next episode. And in the meantime, in Blisstopia we trust.